The morning Eliza Carter was sold, the sky of a red hollow looked wrong. Not stormy, not dark, just bruised, like something had already happened. And the sky hadn't recovered yet. She stood in the front room of the only house she had ever known, her hands stiff at her sides, her breath shallow, as two men sat across from each other at a narrow pine table, deciding what her life was worth. Her father didn't look at her. Not once. Not when he signed his name. Not when he pushed the paper forward. Not even when the man across from him folded it slowly and slid it into his coat like it was nothing more than a receipt. $400. That was the number. $400. And everything she had ever been reduced into it. Her stepmother stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes distant, already detached from whatever came next. Eliza had known something was wrong the moment she was told to put on her good dress. She just hadn't known it would be this. No warning, no choice, no voice. She was 22 years old, and she had just been handed over like something that no longer had use. The man who now owned that paper stood up slowly. His name was Rowan Hale. He didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't even look satisfied. He just buttoned his coat, turned toward her, and met her eyes once. Steady, unreadable. Then he said, quietly, "Get your things." And that was the end of everything she knew. The ride out to his land took nearly 2 hours. He didn't speak. Not once. The wagon rolled over dry ground, the wind cutting across the open plains, carrying nothing with it except silence. Eliza sat rigid beside him, her hands folded tight in her lap, like if she let go, she might come apart. She studied him carefully from the corner of her eye, the set of his shoulders, the way he held the reins, not tight, not loose, just certain. He wasn't old, younger than she expected, maybe early 30s. There was no cruelty written on his face, but there was no warmth either, just distance. He wasn't someone you could read, and that unsettled her more than anything else. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she would survive this, the way she had survived everything else, quietly, carefully, without expecting anything. But beneath that, something small and terrified kept counting the miles behind her, and finding no comfort in the number. Before we go further, if this story is already pulling at something in you, don't just watch. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happens next, no one sees coming. The ranch wasn't what she expected. That was the first problem. It wasn't harsh. It wasn't broken. It wasn't cruel. It stood solid against the open land timber, stone, wide porch like it had nothing to prove. 2 horses stood in the paddock, slow breathing in the cold air. The wind moved through the grass, and everything felt still, too still. Eliza stepped down from the wagon, her boots touching the red earth, and something in her chest tightened. There were no chains here, no locked gates, no obvious threat, and that made it worse, because she had spent the entire ride preparing herself for something she could fight, or at least endure. But how do you prepare for something that doesn't show itself? A ranch hand near the barn gave her a short nod, not curious, not pitying, just acknowledging, like she was a person. Nothing more, nothing less. That alone felt unfamiliar. Rowan carried her trunk inside without a word. She followed, because there was nowhere else to go. The room he showed her was small, clean, simple. A bed, a basin, a window facing east. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. And then she saw the book, sitting on the nightstand. Worn edges, cracked spine, used, not for display, but for reading. Her steps slowed, then stopped. She didn't understand why at first. She crossed the room slowly, picked it up, turned it over in her hands, and something shifted. Not a memory. Not exactly. More like a feeling trying to become one. Like hearing a voice you almost recognize. She had mentioned this book once, years ago, in passing, to someone she couldn't quite place. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cover. A quiet thought slid into her mind. How is this here? She set it down carefully. Too carefully, like it meant something she wasn't ready to face. That's when Rowan stepped into the doorway. He didn't ask anything, didn't explain. He simply walked to the basin and set down a small iron key. Locks for your door, he said. Your room. No one enters without your say. And then he left. Just like that. No pause. No expectation. No explanation. Eliza stood alone in that room. The key. The book. And a feeling she couldn't shake. That this man knew something about her. That she had never told him. She didn't sleep. Not properly. The wind pressed against the walls that night. Low and constant. Like something outside testing the edges of the house. She lay still. Staring into the dark. Listening. The wood creaked. The window rattled. Everything normal. Everything explainable. And still. Her mind wouldn't settle. It kept returning to the book. Twice. She lit the lamp. Just to look at it. Still there. Still silent. Still wrong. She tried to reason it out. Coincidence. Common title? Nothing more. But the feeling didn't leave. It stayed. Heavy. Quiet. Certain. Morning came grey and thin. She washed. Dressed. And made a decision. She wouldn't ask. Not yet. Because asking meant it mattered. And if it mattered, she was already losing distance. She found Rowan at the kitchen table. Coffee in his hand. A map spread out. He looked up when she entered. Nodded once toward the stove. Another cup. Already poured. Waiting. She hesitated. Just for a second. Trying to understand the gesture. Was it control? Or kindness? With her father, she had always known. Cruelty had a shape. A pattern. But with Rowan? Nothing. Still water? And she didn't know how deep it went. She took the cup. Sat across from him. Silence settled between them. Not hostile. Not comfortable. Just there. Then he folded the map. I'll show you the land, he said. You should know where you are. And that's where things begin to change. Not all at once. Not in a way you can point to. But in small moments. The kind that don't feel important. Until they are. He doesn't test her. He doesn't control her. He shows her things. Then steps back. Like when he lets her approach the horse on her own. No correction. No pressure. Just space. And that unsettles her more than anything else. Because she doesn't know how to exist in that kind of freedom. Then, the letter comes. And everything tightens. Then the sister arrives. And the past doesn't knock. It walks straight in, like it owns the place. And then, the question gets planted. Quiet. Precise. Dangerous. He hasn't told you why he really wanted you, has he? That's the moment the story turns. Because now, everything good feels suspicious. Every kindness feels like strategy. And every silence feels like it's hiding something. And just when the doubt reaches its peak, he tells her the truth. He knew her. Before all of this. Years ago. A moment she barely remembered. He never forgot. The book. Not random. Not coincidence. It was her. Always her. And suddenly, everything rearranges. Not into something perfect, but into something real. The conflict returns one last time. Stronger. Sharper. With stakes that actually matter. And this time, she doesn't shrink. She doesn't fold. She chooses. Fully. Clearly. Without fear. And when it's over, when the dust settles, when the silence finally feels different, she does something no one expects. She asks him, not because she has to, not because she's trapped, but because for the first time in her life, she isn't. And that's what makes the ending land. Not the romance, not the twist, not even the rescue, but the choice. Because this was never just about being saved. It was about becoming someone who no longer needed to be. And that's why this story stays with you. If you made it this far, you already understand something most people miss. The quiet things are always the loudest. There's another story waiting for you right now. And if this one pulled you in,